August 18th, 1590. John White finds Roanoke colony deserted, with only a note claiming they just ran to the gas station for a pack of smokes.
Welcome to The Revisionists. I'm Brian Flynn.
I'm Zach Powers.
And our guest is returning favorite. You know her, you love her, Katie Hannon.
Hi,
everyone.
hello.
Thank you for being here, Katie.
Thank you for having me.
Zach, thank you also for being here.
Sure. I have no choice.
It's true. Court ordered.
Yeah, I made the
Judge
unbreakable.
got really renegade with that punishment.
I made a blood vow with that demon from Hereditary. All right, folks, if you are new to the show, this is theoretically a comedy show where we discuss a person or event from history, which, of course, is always the funniest, most racist thing. And then we, after discussing the true account of that person or place or event, we did describe a fake alternate version that can be as batshit bananas, cyborg, Batman meets, Spider-Man, DC, Marvel crossover as you want it to be.
That got significantly more grounded as it went on, actually.
Well, can you imagine them being in the same movie, Brian? Disney would have to buy one more property for that to happen.
I don't see that happening at all. Disney
They're
definitely no longer in the market.
Yeah.
They got
Fair
Fox
enough.
and said, we're satisfied.
I am full. Yum, yum.
And then at the end, we vote on what becomes the true history of the world going forward. Now we're kind of doing a special little mini-series here on everybody's favorite, Jack the Ripper. Everybody's favorite with the suffix "the Ripper" attached to their name. Yes. Yeah, and what we're doing is we're going through the 4 most prominent Jack the Ripper suspects, giving a true account of each of those suspects, and then giving a fake account of each of those suspects, and at the end, we will vote on which of the 8 options is the true identity of Jack the Ripper. And this week, we're talking about which one, Brian? You're going to have to remind me of the name of the dude.
I believe it's pronounced Francis Tumblety.
Ooh, he's the most fun name, I think, of all the suspects.
There's some fun names in there, yeah.
Yeah, fun names. Very fun face on this dude.
Yeah.
Not a fun person, but we'll get to that.
Great guy.
Well, he
Yeah.
definitely
Great
sounds
guy.
like... I'm surprised, that American McGee version of Alice in Wonderland that's like the hardcore Alice in Wonderland? He seems like the kind of guy that would show up in that.
Wait, what the fuck is this?
I don't know of
You've
that.
never
Oh,
heard
the
of,
Johnny
like-
Depp version?
No. There was like a game in the 90s that was like goth Alice in Wonderland, but it was a video game.
Oh, no, that sounds awful.
Yeah, I don't know.
Oh my
I missed
God.
It was called American McGee's Alice. So for all you McGee heads out there...
Pick that up in the CD-ROM rack of your local Best Buy.
Yeah. Your computer is probably too new to play it because it's old as fuck.
Well, last episode with a little boy named Ben Bryant.
I listened. I heard that one.
Oh, yeah.
Just the look in your eyes when you're like, I heard that one.
I wanted to see what I was up against, so...
It's kind of a weird... I'm not sure this is our first time giving a summary of one of the previous episodes because...
Where there wasn't an outcome.
Yeah, there is no outcome. But Montague John Druitt was the fellow we talked about. He seemed to me, when I gave the true history, like a sad man who killed himself, and then a crazy person said he was Jack the Ripper.
And then Ben Bryant's alternate history, there was a skateboarder named Rad Tony, who was also a Jack the Ripper suspect,
Yeah.
who killed people when he went to shred gnar. Did that sound natural?
He didn't. He didn't really touch on Montague Druitt.
No, not
No,
he
he
was
didn't.
like,
Montague
that's
Druitt-
not important.
Still clear, definitely in both versions, I'm going to say, even if my version where I made the case that he was Jack the Ripper wins, he's still not Jack the Ripper because in my own testimony, I was like, this guy's not Jack the Ripper. So vote for that if you want the answer to be, it's still a mystery, I guess.
Yeah, I guess. But I will be doing the actual history, and Katie is going to be doing the alternate.
I was supposed to say that, but you already did, so I'm not going to. Brian, y'all teed up?
Yep.
Alrighty, take it away.
Let's hear it.
Hey there, this is Brian, reminding you that The Revisionist is supported by listeners just like you. You can make a pledge and get rewards like shirts and even the right to vote over at patreon.com/therevisionists.
So I'll say right off the bat, most of this comes from a website called Historic Mysteries.
Oh.
And another website, jacktheripper.org.
Oh my gosh.
With dashes between Jack and the.
Yes.
But not between the and Ripper?
I think there's dashes.
I guess there's multiple dashes.
Okay,
both of those places.
I mean, the people are going to want to check it out.
And
really,
weirdly,
it's the .org that gets me.
Yeah, it's a nonprofit.
Also one between the A and the C for some reason, and between the two P's.
Yeah, there's X's between every letter because this was written in 2003.
It was like the hand claps. It's supposed to be like a clap between each. Yeah.
And you also have to do that thing where you capitalize one letter and then lowercase the next.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly. And it had a glittery MySpace background. Okay.
Oh, I gotta check it out.
Made my computer crash real good back in the 2005s. So our story starts in 1993 when...
1993! Who's got the fever now?
Jurassic Park coming out in theaters. Saved by the Bell. New Kids on the Block, 1993.
Yes, okay. I was 7. Am I in here?
Remember it well.
Yeah.
1993. A British detective and crime historian uncovered a private letter from September 1913 that was written to journalist George Sims from the head of the Metropolitan Police's so-called Special Branch, a man named...
So that's like, I assume... The modern equivalent is the Special Victims Unit.
Oh, I was going with like major case.
For especially heinous crimes.
Yeah.
Of a sexual nature.
Of course, New York's most trusted detectives.
And sometimes there's just an episode about like, I don't know, a weird Second Life crime.
Oh, yeah. I feel like they're mostly about that nowadays.
Oh, man. I am so glad that show's... Wait,
Still?
that's still on, isn't it?
It's still on the air.
There's one episode where the crime they're trying to stop is someone is transporting a rare monkey in a basketball.
Inside of a basketball.
Yeah, inside of a basketball.
Why is this the Special Victims Unit?
Yeah.
Because monkeys are the most special little victims of all.
Oh.
That was both sweet and chilling at the same time. The letter was written by the head of the Metropolitan Police's Special Branch, a man named Chief Inspector John Littlechild, who was a grown man.
And not two children in a trench coat?
No. I can confirm that. The letter revealed that a man by the name of Francis Tumblety was considered a major...
Little Child and Tumblety.
Yeah.
This is a fucking Roald Dahl book.
Well, considering how misogynistic it gets, yes, it's much like a Roald Dahl book. Tumblety was considered a major suspect in the Jack the Ripper murders around the time of the murder of Mary Kelly, who's the last canonical victim. So, little Frankie Tumblety was born in Ireland in 1833. And during the potato famine, his family emigrated to the United States aboard a coffin ship when he was a teenager. His family settled in Rochester, New York.
Is that a ship full of coffins or a ship shaped like a coffin?
Well,
or is it a ship shaped like a coffin that's also full of coffins?
It's sort of shaped like a coffin, I guess. It was mainly called that because Irish people took them and like 30% of them died on the journey.
I'm still getting a vague, like, James and the Giant Peach kind of vibe from this whole story.
Oh, yeah, James and the Giant Coffin.
Uh-huh.
So, again, back to the Roald Dahl.
That's what's called a callback, Brian. I know what Roald Dahl wrote.
I know. 45 seconds. Got to keep that memory sharp.
Got to get those laughs per minute.
Well, I have memento disease, so my callbacks have to be very quick.
Yeah, got to get that LPM up. In Rochester, Tumblety got his first job, which was working as an assistant for a self-proclaimed doctor who sold, and I quote, French cures for sexual diseases. Tumblety also had a side job selling erotic books along the Erie Canal.
Just right there next to the canal?
Yep. You know, the way a canal smells makes people think of erotic thoughts.
So aroused, yeah. In these days.
Is that stagnant water? In upstate New York?
We better find old Frankie Tumbly and get our...
Take a tumble with Tumblety. Anywho, in 1855, he set up shop in Detroit, branding himself, quote, an Indian herb doctor. Also continued selling the French cure.
I do. Yeah, great. I am still, like, on board with this guy 100%. Like, if I saw a place that sold Indian herbs and the French cure, I would assume that I'm about to get fucked up. Really?
Well, this is where he starts maybe getting a little more problematic, other than the maybe selling porn by the river.
Hey, when you're a kid, you know, living in upstate New York or wherever this kid was, you gotta do what you gotta do.
Yeah, he's an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
An enterprising young man.
People need their erotic Harry Potter fanfic. You know what I mean? Where else am I going to get that Snape X Draco fix?
Oh. Little May
yeah,
December.
Little Snako. Yeah. He claimed to have received his degree in medicine and starts signing his name with an MD after it. He's totes not a doctor.
I mean, anyone can do it, really.
Yeah, really, nothing is stopping
Nothing's
you.
stopping anybody.
And who's to say it stands for medical doctor? Could stand for major
Mighty
deceit.
Ducks.
It's, Mad Dog 2020.
Yeah, Mad Dog.
Yeah, he did also add woof woof after it, which kind of threw some people off.
People thought it was a specialty.
So he traveled around Canada, the Northeast U.S., selling his herbal cures. He was super flamboyant. One of the articles I read described him as a Liberace-type character.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah. He would advertise in newspapers when he was coming to town. He always made sure to be seen.
Just what would he say? Like, the doctor's coming to town?
Got a sexual disease. I got a French cure.
Oh, okay.
Let's be real. That's a baller move. If you just are like, I'm going to New York next week. Better get a page in the Times.
Yeah. I mean, those porn, that he must have been selling a lot of porn down by the river to get those full page ads.
God damn it. He would always enter town riding, quote, a beautiful horse. Don't know what that means.
I don't either, okay. Some are more beautiful than I guess.
You've been advertising, oh, this guy's gross, he's a weirdo. So far, this is the best guy we've ever covered.
You are going to come to regret that.
I don't know.
He would be wearing ostentatious outfits, followed by two large dogs. So those were the mad dogs, I guess. I didn't write down a date for this. In St. John, Newfoundland, a patient died in his care, and since he's not a real doctor, he's charged with manslaughter, but he fled Canada before the trial, and then went to Washington, D.C. In 1861, and tried to convince the staff of General George McClellan that he was a surgeon, so he could join his staff. So what he did was invited all of McClellan's officers to what was called an illustrated medical lecture, where he is said to have showed off his collection of uterus specimens. Which I will note right now that both Annie Chapman and Mary Kelly's uteruses were removed by their killer. according to
you know what? When I did say this was the coolest guy we covered, I should have been like, "Oh wait, he's a serious suspect for being Jack the fucking Ripper."
I mean, I was trying to sort of push you in that direction a little bit.
I mean, if it was all French cures and erotic fanfic and full page ads, and
Well, and he's also like in America, like for most of this.
Yeah,
2-dog carriage entrance, like
Yeah, his beautiful horse.
beautiful horse.
his Roald Dahl name, like I was all about that shit.
According to the article from Historic Mysteries, the man who saw Tumblety's uterus collection was New York City lawyer, and this is a direct quote, actually, and I don't know what the fuck it means. New York City lawyer and Civil War reptile journalist / spy Charles Dunham.
I think it's because the media are all lizard people.
Yeah, I don't. Wow, what a specialty. That is very niche.
I will say historicmysteries.com, not the best copy editing. It turns out. So he gives this demonstration in 1861, and Dunham's statement about seeing the collection comes in 1888 after Tumblety becomes a suspect. However, there's a report from an 1861 issue of Vanity Fair that Tumblety lined Broadway outside of his office with just pictures of some of his specimens. And in 1865, here's a fun fact, he's arrested as part of the conspiracy to assassinate Abraham Lincoln. But there's no evidence that he was ever involved, but still. So in May 1888, Tumblety moves to London's West End. So some of the reasons for the suspicion around him is that he was sort of a self-promoting weirdo and attracted a lot of attention to himself. That had a lot to do with him being very visible. He was also sexually attracted to young men, which the articles I read didn't get more specific than that.
Yeah, it seems like maybe the police really
sort of used
glommed
that.
onto that. Yeah.
Although not the best. I mean, considering every victim was female, I don't know that it bolsters their argument per se.
I'll get to that, which sounded ominous. He tended to frequent slums seeking encounters with young men, often got into trouble, charged with crimes up to assault. But the main reason he becomes a suspect is his vicious misogyny. Chief Inspector Littlechild stated, quote, his feelings toward women were remarkable and bitter in the extreme.
Which, like, at that time, for that to be remarkable, he must have been, like, real extreme.
Yeah. Tumblety is said to have called women, quote, a curse on the land, and blamed them for all the world's problems. According to the article, quote, he considered them imposters, decoying young male youths away from their intended lovers, older men.
Ooh, okay, well, that's quite a theory.
Yep. Which now, back then, that was like reason for suspicion in the Jack the Ripper killings. Now that's just a Reddit post. Because police didn't have much actual evidence to go on in the Jack the Ripper killings regarding Tumblety. They arrest him on charges of gross indecency and indecent assault relating to his sex with young men. So there's a interesting timeline here. So he's arrested on November 7th and brought before a magistrate to determine if he should go free in the 7 days between his arrest and his bail hearing. And nowhere in any report can I find the outcome of this hearing, whether or not he was held until his bail hearing or released. So that's November 7th. November 9th, Mary Kelly is murdered. And she's considered the last of the canonical 5 Jack the Ripper killings.
Yeah.
So either Tumblety is out for that or he isn't. But it is also interesting to note that Mary Kelly's murder was the most sadistic and the most gruesome, which if he's sort of an anger-motivated predator, that is kind of an interesting time coincidence. November 14th, he's ordered held on 300 pounds bail. He posts it and leaves jail on November 16th, and then he instructs his lawyer to request a postponement for his next hearing, which is granted for December 10th. And then on November 20th, he has 260 pounds transferred to him from his New York bank. And on November 23rd, he sneaks out of England and ends up in Boulogne, France.
Oh. He was doing all right for himself. He had
I
some
know.
cash.
I just backpacking around Europe.
Yeah, on the run.
Just
Taking out ads in newspapers wherever he went.
Yeah, exactly. For some reason, Inspector Littlechild, though Tumblety was his favorite suspect, mistakenly believed that Tumblety killed himself when he was in France. Actually, he left France the day after he arrived for New York City. New York City, salsa.
Yeah.
So,
Give me somebody get a rope because this man might be a serial killer.
So after his arrest, Tumblety is covered in newspapers on both sides of the Atlantic, and he gives a statement to the New York World where he denies being the Ripper, but does admit to being in Whitechapel at the time of the murders and claims police were following him. So since the crimes he was charged with, gross indecency and indecent assault, were only misdemeanors, Tumblety could not be extradited from the U.S. to the U.K., and so he kind of just chilled. There is anecdotal evidence that British detectives were following him while he was in New York, and one was supposed to have boasted while he was in a bar in New York City that he was there to catch the guy who was Jack the Ripper. Evidence against him being the Ripper tends to center around the fact that several people around the investigation seem to believe he wasn't and gave statements to that regard. George Sims, who received that letter from Littlechild in the beginning, didn't even mention Tumblety as a suspect in his autobiography. Another detective said in an interview with a Toronto reporter that he wasn't Jack the Ripper, but he was a bad dude. Paraphrasing.
Was he a bad enough
a
dude
direct quote.
to save the president, is the
Yeah,
question.
he was a bad enough dude to save the president. President Ronnie has been kidnapped by ninjas. God, what a fucking game that is.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
It's a game called Bad Dudes.
Well, it makes sense. Tracks.
The 1980s, man. So Tumblety also didn't bear much of a resemblance to the descriptions given by those who may have caught a glimpse of Jack the Ripper's face. Tumblety, though, looks insane. There's photos of him sort of dressed in, like, fake military regalia. He usually has a very ostentatious mustache. There's one particular drawing of him where the wings of his mustache extend, like, 8 inches beyond his face on either side.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it looks like a weird, like, Dumbo situation where he's about to take off.
Yeah, well, that's what'll happen if you have too much of the French cure, I guess.
Yeah. Put a little French cure in your mustache and no more syphilis. That's the thing. I tried to look up what a French cure was, and all it said was the French disease was
Just
syphilis.
like champagne
Yeah.
with tobacco in it or something.
Did you check
Condescension.
Urban Dictionary for what a French
I did
cure?
not check Urban Dictionary.
Did you
There was
check
your
Urban
mistake.
Dictionary in 1865?
Urban Dictionary with an E after both the words? Urbane Dictionary.
God damn it. So Tumblety died in 1903 of heart disease. He's buried in Rochester. And one of the articles mentioned this as like a mysterious coincidence. I'm not sure about it, but I'm ending with it anyway. In January 1888, he gave an interview where he said he was scared of dying from heart or kidney disease. And it notes that the organs most frequently removed from Jack the Ripper victims were the uterus, heart, and kidney.
Wow.
Interesting. Maybe that's what you need for the French cure. Just ground
It'd be
it's
so
just like-
crazy.
Trade secrets.
Yeah.
It'd be crazy for someone to be frightened of dying of the most common cause of death.
Good point.
But that's the real story of Francis Tumblety, possible American Jack the Ripper suspect.
Hi, my name is Paul Caroli, and I host a podcast called Changing Denver. It's a monthly show about our city's physical spaces, how we make them, and how they make us. But it's so much more than that. It's the conversations, ideas, and stories that define Denver's perpetual state of flux. Find more from our team at changingdenver.com and join the conversation on Twitter at changingdenver. Denver's changing. We can help.
Katie, whenever you are ready.
Okay, yeah, I didn't. It didn't say any of that on historiesmysteries.gov, which is where I researched. So,
Man, historiesmysteries.gov has taken a real downturn since January 2017.
Well, yeah, it's, yours is probably fake news and mine's real. So yeah, Francis Tumblety, old Frankie Tumbley, he was born in 1830 in Ireland. To a middle-class family, and he had 6 siblings. They were very close, very tight family. They loved each other very much, but they didn't have a lot of money. You know, he had to find ways to pitch in here and there. Sorry. I have to fix this. So he's a kind boy. He wouldn't hurt anyone. He's very sweet, very fun-loving. Is great. Everybody loved him, but he wasn't the brightest kid in his family.
Did they call him Tumblety because he had such joy just tumbling about the park
Yeah,
each
he
morn?
would just tumble about the hills of Ireland, having the best time. But yeah, he was kind of looked over in his family. He had 3 older brothers, and they were all kind of handsome and smart. And he had 2 younger sisters, and obviously they were like the darlings of his parents' eyes. So they didn't pay him a ton of attention. But then when he was 14, unfortunately, his father passed away. It was very sad. Type Angela's Ashes type situation. I think maybe a kid dies in that, but I'm not sure.
I mean,
Okay.
everyone dies in Angela's Ashes,
Well,
I think.
yes, yeah.
Somebody in an Irish family dies. Close enough.
Yeah, exactly. There's so many of them. They have...
My mom made me listen to Angela's Ashes book on tape when it came out.
We're both very Irish, Brian.
And I think I was like in 3rd or 4th grade
I read
when
it
that happened.
I definitely read it in elementary school. Just like quiet grief. So that's what's happening in his family. But the father was the main breadwinner, so they all have to go to work. So Francis, he wants to help out. He's really eager to help his mom. He loves her very much. But he's not like good at most things. He's like bad at most things. So he gets a job at a bakery in Ireland. But he uses the wrong kind of soda in the soda bread. He used Dr. Pepper. You're supposed to use Sprite. So, and it's really bad. You have to use the right kind of soda. So
it's not even the same color. I think that's
I know. Well, he's not bright. He's not a bright guy. And that actually caused the bakery to start on fire because it's really... It's so important.
We all know Dr. Pepper.
Wrong kind of soda. It's very clear.
They call it Dr. Pepper. The pepper is supposed to imply how flammable it is.
Yes. I mean, it's a spicy drink, and we all know that, especially to Irish people. So he's like, everyone's pissed because they're like, this is our bakery. We're already hungry. We are not going to have bread for like months because they have to rebuild the bakery. And so he's like, he can't like show his face in his town. So he's like, you know what? I'll go to England. I'll set up shop there. I'll try and get a job. So he goes to Whitechapel in London, and he like is starting to look for work. He like applies a lot of different jobs, but he just like couldn't find a job because, as we know, he was a filthy Mick, and so he couldn't really get anything.
I think if we say the phrase "filthy Mick" one more time on this show, we get a free one.
Okay, well.
Or we get banned from Apple iTunes. I'm not sure.
I am myself incredibly Irish, if you don't know.
And Brian Flynn is just like, come on, that might as well be Potatoes O'Shaughnessy.
Powers Irish whiskey, right? We all got the curse.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, that's great. So he's like really having a hard time. He sees an ad on like a pole in London that says that the circus is looking for knife jugglers, and he's like, I could probably do that. He's like, I can do that. So he like spends his last few pounds on like a set of knives, and he's like actually doing okay. He's like practicing all the time. He's like in his little flat practicing, and he's like kind of getting it. And he's like, you know what though, like circus performers have to move around, so he's like, I'm gonna go practice. So he's like, I'm going to go down the alley just to, like, be safe. I don't want to hit people. So he's just, like, going for a little walk. He's juggling knives. And unfortunately, he doesn't see that someone is sleeping in the alley. And there's, like, her basket is next to her. And he, like, kind of trips. And he drops all of his knives. And she was sleeping like on her side, so one just kind of like slices right through her throat. And
these were really good knives.
They're really sharp. You have to juggle with sharp knives, I think. This time is very important.
It's like that song from Chicago.
What?
There's in the musical Chicago where the woman says she accidentally stabbed her husband 17 times.
Right.
Cell Block Tango. That's the name of the song.
Yes, great song. Great pull. So yeah, that's what happens. And he's like, I love that. It's great. So, and unfortunately, one of the other knives goes like into her torso, and he's like, "Oh man, I gotta get this knife out of her." But he like, as he's doing it, he kind of like scoops out a lot of her insides.
Oh, it was like what's the best portmanteau for spoon and knife? Spife.
Yes. Yeah. It's like one of those that you use to empty out the inside of the pumpkin. It's like that.
I'm sort of thinking that too.
Yeah. Knife juggling. And he's like, whoopsie. But she's alive. She's still, and he feels terrible. He's like the best dude, but she's still alive. And she's like, don't feel bad. It's not your fault. He's like, she's like, please don't feel bad. And he's like, that's her dying wish. So like, I have to not feel bad and just like, not turn myself in. So he does that.
That would be a hell of a... If there were a court case where somebody asks if somebody regrets the murder and they're like, no, but to be fair, it was my victim's last wish.
Yes, that I not, you have to honor that.
Her last words were "Po Buddy's nerfect," I believe.
yes, that is, you got it. I have that written down here. Thank you, historiesmysteries.gov. But he's shaken, obviously, but he's like, my mom and family are still starving. He's like getting letters from his mom. His brother is sick now too, obviously. So he's like, I have to do something. And he's like out in the streets one day. He's just walking around. He's like looking for work. And he hears a couple dudes talking. And they're like, hey, did you hear about that new sport, the javelin? And they're like, yes, I did. It's very popular. And people, if you're good at it, people will pay you to do it. Like at parties or something? I'm not sure.
Now they just pay javelin throwers an exposure, which is a fucking crock. But
Yeah. I just realized I was thinking about pole vaulting when I wrote this.
No. I've dabbled in javelins, and somebody tried to contract me to do some javelin work on his website. He's like, "Oh, it's just exposure."
Yeah.
I dabbled in javelins has to be like a theater kids warm up now.
I dabbled in javelins. Dabbled in javelins. So he's like sick. Like, I can do this. So he like scrounges up some money. He like busks for a while, and he gets he does some knife juggling. So he's like practicing, but there's like nowhere good to practice. The streets are very crowded and dirty. So he's like, I know this alley nearby. I'll just try it in there. So he like, goes out to the alley to try it, and he like throws it, and then he like hears a noise. He just thought it was a pile of trash. What do you know? There was another woman sleeping in the alley. He got her just right across the throat. So he like runs over. He's like, I gotta help this lady, and he tries to pull it out, but he like kind of fumbles it, and then it lands again in her torso. And so he's like trying to get it out again, and unfortunately, I just think he like didn't. He maybe thought you had to go in to get out, so he like
Yeah, it's like that song, "Cruel to Be Kind."
You gotta like get it in a little to loosen it, and then you pull it out. Is how you do it.
He was like
Chinese finger trap.
Yes. Yeah.
He's like, at this point, I'm closer to the back than the front, so I might as well just go with it.
Yes. Yeah. Like you're not supposed to pull a thing out. Maybe he's like, if you push it through, that's better. So he accidentally digs out some organs again, and this time the woman's uterus is just like stuck on the end of there, and he just cannot get it off. It's like really stuck. It's like, gross. But this is another kind angel woman, and she's like, I know it was an accident, and I don't blame you. Like, please live your life. And he's like, okay. Again, it's her dying wish. I got to do it. I can't turn myself in. I'm racked with guilt, but I can't, I got to do it. So he's like, fuck javelin. Like, that didn't work. So he's like, but my mom still needs my help. Now, like, 3 of my brothers are sick. Like, everyone's sick. So I got to do something. So he's like, walking the streets again, he sees an ad looking for a barber for lady hair. I don't know if that did barbers for women. Did they have those? I think they did. At least they did in this shop. So he's like, tells the dude he's in a tough spot. The guy's like, okay, here's some scissors. Go practice on some ladies and like come back and you'll know how to cut hair and you can like show me. So he's like, cool. So he like meets a couple ladies in an alley and he's like, you know what? Can I practice on you? And they're like, yes, we need haircuts. So he's like, he doesn't know how to do it.
No,
he's clueless.
I'm curious to see after he practices on the first one, why the second one still consents.
Well, so he kind of like, he lined them both up.
Oh.
He's like, I'm just going to
Two
go
for
across. I'm just going to get their hair all one length.
So I get
He's
it.
really
Like,
going for it from go.
yeah, he's like 2 for 1. I got to practice.
he
get
needs
it just
that
across.
money, and he can cut twice as many people's hair.
Yes.
Yeah.
So he has them lined up. He is like getting to one side, and one of the ladies like sneezes and just like moves really quickly, and just kind of impaled herself on the scissors, just like an inch long cut on this lady. And she's like, you know what? I don't want to be rude. I'm going to go for a walk. Like, please finish the other woman's haircut. So she may have died in a different alley, I think, is what happened. But so he's like, okay. He's like, let's not be rude. This woman wants her haircut. So he finishes. He's like getting it almost done. And then she like sees her friend and she like forgets her hair's getting cut. And she's like, hey. And she like stands up and somehow just like runs right into the scissors with her neck across.
You know
Bad
what?
luck he's got.
The other ones, I feel like it was kind of his bad. This one, I'm putting it on those ladies.
Yeah, they're really moving around. They're getting their hair cut.
Yeah.
So she like stands up and then she like turns and then the scissors are in her torso again. And
The more this goes on, the more I definitely believe this came from historyfacts.gov.
Yeah. He didn't do anything wrong. There's fine people on both sides. So I don't know what's going on again, but unfortunately he does scoop out some organs again with the scissors because it's like he just really can't figure out.
One thing leads to another.
Trying to get the hair even.
Yeah.
One side gets too
high. It happens, yeah. And so he's feeling awful. He's so upset.
Why in most barber shops nowadays you do see an extra little tub where they keep the kidneys that have been accidentally removed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's why they give you a protective layer.
Yeah, that thing is so your organs stay inside.
It keeps your organs inside.
That black thing.
That's what it says every time I go to Fantastic Sam's. That's their guarantee.
Yeah. So, he's upset and she's just like, you know what? She's like, I saw my friend. That was on me and don't worry about it. And he's like, okay. And at this point, he's like, I'm not going to turn myself in because she said not to don't worry about it. But he's feeling really terrible. And he's super upset. He's like, I need a break. I just want to relax. And so he like runs into an old friend. And she's like, well, just come over to my flat and we'll like watch some TV and we'll just hang out. And he's like, you know what? That sounds nice. But unfortunately.
TV being an acronym for a puppet show at the time.
Yeah. Unfortunately, she turns
on.
Yeah,
it was technically ventriloquism.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah. It was really fascinating. So she turns, the TV on, and unfortunately, the HBO show Sharp Objects was on. And before he knows what happened, those objects were just so sharp. And
because, as we said, this was a puppet show, so there were physical objects.
Yes, yeah, and they just really hack away at his friends or at his friend, and he's like, this doesn't make a lot of sense, but neither does the show Sharp Objects. So I don't know. Like it's a taut drama.
Where was Amy Adams that night? We asked.
She's just speaking really quietly to someone. I don't know if you watch that show. Just breathing heavily. So she's really just hacked up, and he's like, you know what? That wasn't me. That was the Sharp Objects. Like I didn't even do that. So he's pretty bummed, but he's like, I gotta get out of here. So he takes some time to recover, and eventually he gets a job as a well-renowned, legitimate doctor, and he saves his whole family's life. They were all sick. He makes them all better. I don't know if he used the French cure or not. It didn't say on historiesmysteries.gov. So yes, he was technically Jack the Ripper, at least for the canonical 5. Mm-hmm. But it was a complete misunderstanding. Total accident every time.
Just Murphy's Law.
Yeah, I mean, Murphy, he's Irish too. He gets it. As for the other murders that are not confirmed to have been done by Jack the Ripper, but are suspected to be. He definitely did those, but just in cold blood. So he did those ones too. He is
really buried the lead.
Yeah,
there.
yeah. He is a filthy Mick, after all. I told
All
you.
Irish people are murderers.
Yes, yeah.
It turns out.
So that's the story of Francis Tumblety.
Katie,
Wow.
Bad luck. Yeah, you're welcome.
Whoopsie doodle.
Oh, yeah. Poor guy.
Except for the ones that were on purpose.
I think, and maybe I said maybe he got his name because he would tumble in the Irish hills, but I think actually, if I recall correctly, actually after every one of these accidents, he'd say, "Oh, Tumblety."
Yeah, that sounds right. Unlucky guy.
Listeners, I want to take this opportunity to remind you that Revisionist is a proud member of the Denver Podcast Network, along with such shows as One More Shot, hosted by Elaine Grant, formerly of Public Radio, which is a show about people's reinvention stories. And it's just coming back from hiatus. So check out One More Shot. It's a really great show. Other business, we asked that, hey, why don't you write us a little review there on your podcast service of choice?
It helps us climb up the iTunes charts from,
From 0 to 0.
10,576 to 10,574.
Take that, no longer running Airbud podcast or
Yeah.
whatever.
Sorry, Jay's laser tag review.
I do want to listen to that.
Subscribing.
Yeah.
Also, you could contact us via our website, revisionistpodcast.com, or our social medias, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Tumblr now, I guess, also. So check that out. Katie, you co-host one of the best shows
Thank you.
in Denver.
Yes. It's called Designated Drunkard. It's okay. It's okay. It's called Designated Drunkard. It's a comedy show and a drinking game in one. It's the first Saturday of every month at El Chorito. It's very fun.
Do check that out. It's so good. And then you're going to be on High Plains also.
I am. Yeah, I am on High Plains. I don't know what the show's called. It will be at Three Kings on Friday at 8.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be fun.
Zach, you are sort of taking charge in our reminding people to register to vote campaign.
Yeah, we will have a link in the show notes to for where every state, people from every state can go for simple instructions on how to register to vote. Most states cut it off about a month before the election, so you have probably less than 2 months to register by the time this is released, maybe 6 weeks tops. So I would say go do that. I mean, like Mr. Tumblety, the current administration has a bunch of whoopsies. And if you don't like the whoopsies, maybe you could try to vote for someone luckier than they are. But yeah, just go to usa.gov/register to vote, dashes between each word, or look in the show notes for a link.
Yes. As for me, listeners, I co-host a live show and podcast called Queen City Companion with Jen Colick, who was on our Titanic episode. It's an all-fall storytelling show at Mutiny the first Thursday of every month. So check that out. And check out the podcast under Mutiny Transmissions. Also, I have a brand new show coming September 15th to the Comedy Room at El Chorito called Know Your Shit. It is comedy TED Talks on a different theme each month. And it's going to be bananas. So check that out September 15th, 8 o'clock, Comedy Room. But since we are not...
No judgments on these special Jack the Ripper mini-series.
Exactly.
Where do people go to vote?
People can buy the right to vote on our Patreon page, but we will open the voting
to the common masses, the common, teeming, disgusting masses.
I'll edit that out.
Sorry,
so-
you can edit that out too
That's
if
okay.
you want.
We'll be opening the voting September 15th when the last of our 4 episodes comes out. And then we'll be doing the results in a special episode that will be out the next week, September 22nd. So listen
And then
for that.
after that, we'll be right on. You won't get away from the spooks and the scares, because the next week is going to be Shocktober. So
yes, indeed.
More death and heinous murders and such.
But I think that'll do it for this episode. For everyone here at The Revisionist, I'm Brian Flynn.
I'm Zach Powers.
Have a good time.